I think Kim Bao, it's a question of, you know, is he going to have very much a PBA mindset of playing, or is he going to have the international structure mindset? And when you go up against Chinese Taipei, those players play in I think it's the T League or the Plus League as well. They'll represent some very good teams. But from what we've seen today, I can concur that he seems like a bright talent. But the question is, how far is he going to progress? That's going to be the bigger question because, we see this right now with Kai Soto. I think 4 or 5 years ago, people are talking about Kai Towns. And we did see that today in snippets against Hong Kong. So I wouldn't be surprised come the next game when Chinese Taipei rock up in town. Their whole defensive game plan is going to be, let's bring the big man away from the bucket. Because if you compare Hong Kong with Chinese Taipei, it's two different teams. I think
Josh Bett at isang foreign basketball analyst na sumusubaybay dito kay Kai Soto at sa Gilas Pilipinas, napansin ang malaking pagbabago dito kay Kai Soto at improvement sa laruan nito. Kupunan ng Chinese Taipei na makakalaban bukas ng Gilas Pilipinas ay sobrang laki daw ng pinagkaiba kumpara dito sa Hong Kong. Kaya kailangan nga daw seryosohin ng Gilas ang laban na ito dahil hindi pa nga sigurado kung panalo sila sa Chinese Taipei. At Kevin Kembao, kailangang ituloy ang basketball career internationally kung gusto nga daw na magtuloy-tuloy ang improvement kagaya ni Kai Soto. At yan ang ating mga pag-uusapan sa bidyong ito. Division TV. Nagkaroon nga ng breakdown itong si Josh Bett at ang isang foreign basketball analyst na si Sir Navs Ganglani about dito sa laban ng Gilas Pilipinas at ng Hong Kong. At dito ngayon napag-usapan nila ang dalawang batang Gilas player at future stars ng Gilas Pilipinas na si Kai Soto at si Kevin Kembao. At eto nga't pakinggan natin ang pag-uusap nilang dalawa.
Playing with more force in this contest. Now, part of that is maybe because Hong Kong's front line when it comes to matching his size was really non-existent. That's how he was able to pull down 15 rebounds so easily. He had 10 by the end of the first half, I believe. I think he had like 9 or 10 by the end of the first half. But you did say in our last podcast that watching Kai Soto in the B League, there was an improvement factor there. Did have a pair of double-doubles in his last few B League games before playing for Gilas. And you just saw a little bit more, at least from my perspective, a confident / assertive Kai Soto compared to what we've seen before. Now, what you're saying is right. Quality of opponent, Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei, very different. You add New Zealand into the mix, their other group mate in this scenario, it gets even a little more tricky down the line. But in terms of stepping stones into what you want to see these players, particularly Kai, develop into eventually, I have to admit, I was at the least encouraged by some of the assertiveness I saw out of him.
Yeah, I agree. That's the question. Sorry. Why are Hong Kong playing a 2-3 zone in the first place? Simple fact is they can't match up man-to-man with Philippines. They don't have a player tall enough to deal at the center role with Kai Soto. They don't have a power forward who's equipped to defend Justin Brown in the perimeter, but also in a mismatch in the block. So they have to go to a 2-3 zone. You only play a zone defense if, at a very amateur level, if the other team's not a great three-point shooting team, or like you said, in this case, you're in foul trouble or you're mismatched. But when you get to elite pro basketball, zone defenses are used left, right, and center to put players off if they're conducted in a very, very strong way. This wasn't the case. Now, going back to that question, how do you break down a zone defense? You alluded to this already, Naveen. It's old-fashioned high-low. So personally, how my dad used to play against zone defense was the old-fashioned way is to put your four-man power forward at the high post, flash high, and that way you enter the ball to him. You can either kick out the shooters or you can dump down to your five who will usually play block to block. They didn't quite do that in this case, but they used Scotty Thompson at the high post, and they did that once in the third quarter. It was the very first play. You saw what happened. Thompson got a high post, dumped down to Kai, 2 free throws. But where Gilas ran away with this, Hong Kong, their offense ran out of ideas. You got Duncan Reed trying to bring Kai Soto away from the basket. Boom, but if all you're trying to do is pick and roll and go for perimeter shots, you're not getting anything inside the key. Gilas did a phenomenal job of creating turnovers, but converting those turnovers into transition points. If you saw, they played a very quick tempo in the third quarter, but it all came down to defense. I would say there's a lot to learn from this game, but if you compare Hong Kong with Chinese Taipei, it's two different teams. I think Tab's probably going to... Tim Cohn is probably going to go back to his principles. You know, the triangle offense, the spacing, to try and manipulate players in the corner, whether that is Justin Brownlee, whether that is, I'm not sure who else he'll have out there, but you could probably play that style against Chinese Taipei. Hong Kong were a very, very different team. They had to, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of excitement. He looks like he's going to be a very, very good player. The opponent today was a very different opponent. It's, you know, to really have a full assessment of Kim Bao is, you know, we got to see him first up against Chinese Taipei. They'll be bigger. They'll be a little bit more organized. They'll probably be a little bit more technical. I think Kim Bao, it's a question of, you know, is he going to have very much a PBA mindset of playing, or is he going to have the international structure mindset? And, you know, when you go up against Chinese Taipei, you know, those players play in the, I think it's the T League or the Plus League as well. They'll represent some very good teams. But from what we've seen today, I can concur that he seems like a bright talent. But the question is, how far is he going to progress? That's going to be the bigger question, because, you know, we see this right now with Kai Soto. I think 4 or 5 years ago, people were talking about Kai Soto going to the NBA. Kai is still a very, very good player, but he's playing in the B League right now, so he hasn't met those expectations. So, like I said, I need a little bit more time to really fully assess Kim Bao.